Hinamoto was once a land of humans until in 1568 a Kishin suddenly appeared, marking the end of human dominion. The generals of the warring states fell one after another, but some continued to fight against the complete rule of the Kishin. Those who still opposed the Oni are known as Bushi. 151 years later, in the village of Tatsuyama, humans now worship the Kishin and pray to him for safety. At the miners' training school, Musashi is praised by his classmates for being the top miner in his class. During history class, Musashi and the others are taught that the Bushi were monsters who ruled over Hinamoto 150 years ago, making life a living hell for the agrarian class. However, Musashi knows the truth, that the Bushi were the only ones who stood against the Oni. Musashi recalls his childhood days training in swordsmanship with Kojiro. Kojiro's father, Jisai, shows them ancient scrolls and tells them how the Bushi are still fighting against the Oni and wish to liberate humanity. Kojiro ponders whether a single Bushi has the strength to take down a colossal Kishin, to which Musashi suggests that perhaps this is the reason why Bushi band together to fight. Musashi then decides to form the strongest Bushi band with Kojiro and defeat the Oni. After class, Musashi visits Kojiro. As tomorrow is the graduation ceremony, Musashi is worried he might end up becoming a miner. He shows his pickaxe, calling it his katana to fight against the Oni, and asks Kojiro to leave town with him and form a Bushi band. However, Kojiro refuses. Kojiro explains that he and his father are descendants of Bushi and are thus treated like garbage by the townsfolk. Kojiro believes his father lied to them, making Kojiro feel better that the Bushi are heroes. Musashi tells him not to give up on his dream, but Kojiro believes Musashi has already given up himself, as every day in school he exclaims that his ambition is to pursue a career in mining, echoing the sentiments of his classmates. Musashi leaves angrily but determined to show how serious he is. Kojiro goes out to collect garbage and remembers his youth and how badly he was treated for being a Bushi and wishes Musashi doesn't experience it and lives a normal miner's life. The next day, Musashi and the rest of his class graduate from the miners' school. They pass through the Oni gate and head towards the mines, where they will encounter the Oni for the first time. Upon entering the mines, one of them is devoured by an Oni. They are then told they will be slaves of the Oni and will mine stones for them until they die. The new miners realize they have been lied to all this time and that the Oni are monsters. Musashi asserts he already knew and that he will kill some Oni. However, at that moment he realizes he doesn't have his pickaxe as he had to leave it outside before entering. One of the Oni hears him and becomes enraged, increasing his strength. With no other option, Musashi grabs an ordinary pickaxe. Kojiro notices Musashi forgot his backpack at home and is surprised when he checks it. Meanwhile, Musashi fights against the Oni, but he is no match for him. He realizes he was lying to himself and just going with the flow to not fall behind. Musashi screams that his dream is to become a Bushi, and a moment before the Oni kills him, Kojiro comes attacking the Oni with his kitatsuki, saving Musashi. He hands Musashi his pickaxe and his textbook, where he saw Musashi was serious all along and was using his pickaxe as sword practice. Seeing the Oni, Kojiro realizes his father was right and didn't lie. Musashi thrusts his pickaxe into the ground, making Kojiro remember that in his textbook, he used the ground as a sheath. When the Oni attack them, Musashi strikes and cuts the Oni in half. The other Oni also attack and Kojiro and Musashi begin to fight them. While defeating the Oni, Musashi confides in Kojiro his desire to team up, clarifying it's not out of fear but rather not wanting to face the battle solo, and it simply wouldn't be the same without Kojiro by his side. Just then, the sky illuminates, heralding the arrival of a Kishin. Riding atop the kitatsuki, Musashi relentlessly dispatches Oni after Oni. Musashi is exhilarated that they will finally materialize their dream of forming a Bushi band. However, Kojiro's enthusiasm is lacking. Though he desires to leave the village, his longing to be a Bushi and slay Oni has long been forgotten. Nevertheless, Musashi remains confident that Kojiro will rekindle his fervor. Their encounter with the Kishin surprises them, as it appears smaller than expected. Despite Musashi effortlessly cleaving it in two, the Kishin swiftly regenerates to its former state. Villagers, worshippers of the Kishin, arrive bearing offerings. As the Kishin consumes their tributes, it metamorphoses into a colossal and menacing form in Goku Tengu. The villagers rejoice, for after 5 years, this is the first time the Kishin has revealed its true visage. However, Kojiro and Musashi are knocked down by the Kishin's onslaught. Observing Musashi prone on the ground, Kojiro braces himself for battle, only to have his sword seized by the Kishin. Despite pleas from the villagers to relinquish the sword, Kojiro adamantly refuses, knowing the significance it holds. Enraged, the Kishin impales Kojiro with its finger, confiscates his sword, and devours it. In a daring move, Musashi leaps onto the Kishin, raining blows upon its belly with Kojiro's sword. To the astonishment of all, his assault inflicts wounds upon the Kishin, eliciting pain. As the Kishin attempts to crush Musashi, his evasion inadvertently aids in splitting open its belly. Yet, as Musashi tumbles into the gaping wound, he emerges moments later, clutching Kojiro's sword. Recognizing its importance, he returns it to Kojiro, urging him not to lose it again. Meanwhile, one of the worshippers alerts them to the approach of a Bushi band. Witnessing a mobile castle and Bushi mounted on Kitetsuki emerging from it, Musashi and Kojiro watch as they breach the Kishin's barrier and converge upon it. Naotora Takeda, the Bushi captain, advises Musashi and Kojiro to seek safety. However, Musashi boldly asserts their own Bushi status and their role in defeating the Kishin. Naotora, amused, directs their attention to the now regenerated Kishin. As the situation escalates, Kojiro suggests they heed the man's advice and step aside. Yet, Musashi refuses to relinquish their hard-earned victory. Charging forward, he begins dispatching Nikomata Oni with fervor. While doubts arise about Musashi's true Bushi lineage, Naotora remains resolute that the Kishin must be vanquished to save the people. Musashi rushes to take down the Kishin, while Kojiro decides to hang back. But Musashi's punches turn out to be like tickles. Shunrai grabs Musashi and drags him to Takeda's camp. Musashi is flipping out because they're holding him back and not letting him snag his first prize and make his dream come true. Naotora explains that they're Bushi and can't let a reckless kid go charging onto the battlefield. She tells him that he alone can't take down the Kishin, that it takes a bunch of Bushi just to hold it back, let alone hurt it. Musashi agrees that maybe he can't do it alone, but still refuses not to try, feeling like he'll regret it if he doesn't. He manages to break free and dives back onto the battlefield. Naotora decides to let him go, saying if he's got something worth risking his life for, then he really is a Bushi. The Bushi gear up to shoot at the central horn. Musashi starts pounding the ground, causing a landslide, which messes up the Bushi's technique, and when the Bushi shoot, the Kishin manages to move and dodge the Bushi's shots as Musashi makes his daring jump onto the Kishin. Kojiro had earlier gathered intel from the worshippers, advising Musashi to target the horn on the Kishin's belly button as its weak spot. Musashi lunges at the Kishin's midsection, aiming for the crucial horn, only to have his pickaxe shatter upon impact. When the Kishin is about to kill Musashi, Naotora walks past Musashi, says he's shown how serious he is, and then cuts off the horn. The Kishin bites the dust, and Naotora apologizes for having to take away his first prize. The Kishin then blows up. The Bushi raise their swords, absorbing the power of the Kishin. Musashi and Kojiro are frustrated because their first prize got snatched like that. Seeing the Bushi celebrating, Kojiro remembers an image that his dad showed him and realizes that everything he said was true and that the Bushi are heroes. Naotora tells the villagers that her Bushi squad will take down all the Kishin and make the world safe again. The worshippers say it's been 150 years and the Kishin have multiplied and grown in power, and meanwhile, the Bushi keep fighting, dragging innocent civilians into their mess. Naotora explains that she grew up hearing that her dream is impossible and that not all Bushi agree with her. Some think stability should come first before taking out the Oni. Bushi have impossible dreams, which they pass on to those who come after them, but with everything they inherit, they become stronger. Naotora says that looking at the fearless blue sky is something everyone wishes for their kids. She believes that eventually their generations will be victorious and asks for everyone's help. The Bushi then shout freedom for Hinamoto in support of Naotora. Kojiro feels that Naotora is a Bushi just like his dad described. However, Musashi is pissed and decides to spill what he thinks. Naotora walks up to them and apologizes for taking away their prize, but Kojiro says they just weren't strong enough. Seeing everyone happy, Musashi decides to keep quiet. Naotora says Musashi has potential and that even though he's weak now, if he works hard, he'll become stronger. While others keep teasing Musashi, telling him to at least thank Naotora for saving his life, Musashi blows up and starts yelling that he's pissed because his first prize got ripped off. Naotora says Musashi has guts and gives him a crystal, saying it's a consolation prize for not being able to kill the Kishin. Then, Naotora leaves, but that only pisses off Musashi even more. Later, Musashi is still steamed. They inspect the crystal and see it has the seal of the province of Aki, realizing it must belong to an official. Musashi is annoyed and wants to smash it, but then he sees it's actually a kaleidoscope. Seeing Musashi looking through it, Kojiro remembers seeing it and pulls out the Bushi scrolls and points to a man using it. Musashi realizes the pattern on the scroll is the same as what he sees in the kaleidoscope. Musashi quickly realizes that the device they've received from Naotora is designed to detect Oni, essentially a tool handed to them to hunt down their next Kishin. They inspect the scroll to learn more and discover there are over 100 Kishin and that the name Ngoga Tengu is even on the scroll. Reading further, they realize the Bushi's ultimate goal is to unify the land. Then, Musashi runs into town and tells Naotora he's fighting to unify the country. Naotora praises him for figuring it out. Fighting the Oni is no joke and Musashi won't be able to do it alone. Musashi points out that Takeda's Bushi haven't done it yet either. It's a 150-year-old dream so big that no one has achieved it yet. And if no one can do it, then Musashi will. He'll take down all the Kishin and unify the country. The next day, Musashi and Kojiro peace out of the village. Musashi says he's glad he met Kojiro and that his dad taught him fencing, otherwise, he'd still be digging rocks and wouldn't have anything to dream about. Musashi and Kojiro decide they should take a break from their usual bickering on their journey. They have some great days at first, but after a week of munchies running out, Musashi, hungry and parched, starts pointing fingers at Kojiro for not packing enough snacks. Kojiro, on the other hand, blames Musashi for relying too much on him, but also throws shade by pointing out that unlike Musashi, who practically had a buffet in the dorm, Kojiro had to fend for himself and even learned some survival tricks, like fishing, which he rubs in Musashi's face for failing to catch any fish. Peeved, Musashi decides he's gonna reel in more fish and heads off to a different spot. Kojiro wonders why Musashi is acting like they're in a fishing competition since it doesn't matter who's the angling ace, but then out of nowhere, a girl pops up. Musashi, unable to catch a single fish, wonders why they're playing hooky from their usual banter and heads back to Kojiro to apologize, only to find him flopped on the ground with an ouchie. Before Kojiro can even say ouch, the girl, Tsugumi, pins Musashi to the ground and demands they hand over all their loot. Using some serious muscle, Musashi manages to wriggle free and faces off with Tsugumi in a tussle. Musashi realizes she's got some moves, but they're about as effective as trying to tickle a bull with a feather. Tsugumi then starts flip-flopping her attitude faster than a politician during election season. First, she's all flirty, saying Musashi is a real heartthrob and she's into strong guys. Then, in the blink of an eye, she's back to being all business, trying to poke Musashi with a kunai like she's slicing a watermelon at a summer barbecue. But Musashi's not falling for her tricks and tosses her aside like yesterday's leftovers. Tsugumi shocked her seductive antics didn't work on him, especially considering how well they worked on Kojiro. Musashi's equally surprised that her attempt at seduction got Kojiro to bite the bait. Musashi explains he went through some special training and his charm resistance stat is maxed out. Hearing that, Tsugumi decides to get down to brass tacks and whips out her weapons. Just then, a horn sounds, and Tsugumi realizes she's late for her afternoon tea party or something, hops in her ride, and speeds off. Meanwhile, at the Bushi fortress of Kosamita, Tsugumi meets up with Hideo Kosamita, apologizing for her tardiness but boasting she managed to snag the Kitatsuki from the Bushi, just like Hideo asked. Hideo knew she had it in her and she goes in for a victory hug, claiming she's head over heels for him and is ready for her next mission. Musashi and Kojiro track down the Kitatsuki to the Bushi stronghold of Kosamita. They're hoping it's packed with Bushi, but they still roll in, eager to reclaim their ride. As they snoop around, Tsugumi catches them snooping and welcomes them to Kosamita Bushi, explaining she just borrowed the Kitatsuki and asks them to follow her. They're suspicious, but they tag along anyway. They get a grand tour and Musashi's jaws drop like a cartoon character discovering a secret lair. Tsugumi corrects them, saying it's not a city, it's a castle. She explains that Bushi castles are like mobile homes thanks to all the folks living in them. Along the way, they bump into some kids itching for playtime, and while Kojiro joins in the fun, Musashi remarks he didn't expect to see a Norman Rockwell painting among the Bushi. Tsugumi explains they're all one big happy family, but she's the odd one out with no blood relations. Tsugumi then shares a sad tale about her past, reminiscing about her sister Tsubame, who once told her that Bushi fight not only for themselves but to protect the weak too. Musashi reveals he's a lone wolf too, and Tsugumi realizes they're cut from the same cloth. Later, They join Hideo for dinner, and he greets them warmly, saying it's nice to meet some new Bushi buddies. Hideo is all impressed by their Kitetsuki and suggests they must be top-tier Bushi who've bagged tons of Kishin. Hideo then offers them a chance to join forces with the Bushi of Kosamita to tackle a big bad gang of Oni in the area. Musashi's scratching his head wondering what in the world a Kitetsu is, which catches Tsugumi and Hideo off guard. Realizing they're clueless, Hideo calls them useless and orders Tsugumi to tie them up. Tsugumi gets all serious and binds Musashi and Kojiro up with her ninja skills. Hideo figures they must have more Kitetsu stashed away somewhere and orders them locked up. Tsugumi apologizes for her blunders, admitting she's as useless as a screen door on a submarine since she was supposed to bring powerful Bushi who'd be useful to Hideo. With their small crew and only one Kitetsu, they're kind of up the creek without a paddle. However, since Tokugawa entrusted the land to Hideo, he's dead set on defending it at all costs. If the Oni attack again, he might have to call for a full-on castle-wide mobilization. Tsugumi points out most of the adults are women, children, and old folks, and Hideo can't expect them to fight to the death against the Oni. Hideo wonders if that's really true since Bushi were made to battle Oni, and their idea of a good time would be going toe-to-toe with Oni until the bitter end. Hideo flies off the handle and demands to hear her argument, but scared out of her wits, Tsugumi backpedals, claiming he's right on the money, and asks for her next mission. Hideo cools down and says she's useless without him, but he'll always have her back. After a good yell, Tsugumi pays a visit to Musashi and Kojiro, asking if they really don't have any Kitetsu. When they insist they're clueless about the whole thing, she spills the beans that it's the iron dust that shows up after a Kishin croaks, and it's got some oomph that Bushi used to take on the Oni. Tsugumi reveals a herd of Kodama Oni are heading for the castle. Musashi realizes Tsugumi's holding something back and not saying it. Tsugumi realizes she's trying to say the townsfolk will bite the dust and she's against total mobilization, but she can't spill the beans out loud and starts bawling and bolts. Musashi and Kojiro put their fishing skills to the test, using a makeshift hook and line contraption to nab the cell keys and, with Musashi's cunning, they manage to bust out of Kosamita Castle's slammer. They track down their Kitetsuki but still need to retrieve their weapons. From afar, Musashi and Kojiro spy a swarm of Oni Kodama heading straight for the castle. Hideo catches up with Tsugumi and breaks the news about the Oni attack, calling for a full-on panic mode. Tsugumi's floored, but she remembers Musashi's pep talk and decides to stand up to Hideo once again, giving him a piece of her mind. Hideo's boiling mad but then pulls a 180, acting all melancholy, claiming he treated her like a princess, but she didn't appreciate his love. Then he drops the bombshell that he's done with her and kicks her out of the gang and the castle, telling her to go live in the wild. He promises to sweep it under the rug if she complies, and Tsugumi, not keen on getting the boot, reluctantly agrees. Standing before a portrait of Hideo, Tsubame, and herself, Tsugumi recalls her sister going through the same ordeal and now understands how she felt. However, Tsugumi rallies once more to protect the townsfolk and take on Hideo. But every time she looks at her portrait, she chickens out, unable to make a decision. That's when Musashi and Kojiro come crashing through the wall, destroying the portrait in their quest for their swords. Tsugumi warns them to stay put until Hideo says otherwise, but Musashi couldn't care less about Hideo's 2 cents. Tsugumi says she's useless and weak without Hideo, but Musashi disagrees, pointing out she bested Kojiro and knows more about Oni than they do. As they hear the Oni closing in, Musashi calls her to join them in fighting the Oni. Tsugumi agrees to lead them to their weapons but needs their help with something. After retrieving their gear, she takes them to the square where Hideo had corralled the townsfolk. She asks Musashi and Kojiro to help them escape, and Musashi delegates the planning to Kojiro. Hideo tells the townsfolk they're all signing up for the big showdown. Since they're as green as grass in a salad bowl, the townsfolk are less than thrilled, but they realize there's no running from this. Then, Tsugumi throws some smoke bombs, declaring it'd be a shame for any Bushi worth their salt to send non-combatants into battle. She suggests they bunker down until the Oni pass, then call for backup. Privately, Tsugumi admits her plan is just to buy time until the others escape. Hideo thinks Tsugumi's never been so verbose and wonders if it's some kind of trick. However, Musashi and Kojiro use the distraction to KO all the guards while they vanish into the smoke. Tsugumi tells everyone they can make a break for it, but no one budges. Hideo warns them desertion is a crime and their whole families will get the boot. Tsugumi realizes the townsfolk are still terrified and won't budge. To give them the guts to escape, Tsugumi decides to take Hideo down herself. Tsugumi faces off against Hideo in a duel but gets whooped faster than you can say ouch. As he pummels her, he reminds her he taught her how to fight and they're all useless without him, so they better listen up or else they can't even tie their shoelaces. Tsugumi spits blood in his face, saying she won't listen anymore and she's chosen to fight. She gets up, and they both whip out their weapons. As she fights him, she realizes she wasn't afraid of him but of being alone after leaving him. She shouts to the townsfolk they can live to fight another day, but if they keep obeying him, it'll cost them everything eventually, and now's the time to stand up. Tsugumi manages to dodge Hideo's attack and then catches him with her weapon, lifting him up and slamming him to the ground, defeating him. Then, the townsfolk make a run for it from the castle. As Tsugumi stays to hold off Hideo, she knows she won't make it in time to escape the Oni Kodami closing in. However, Musashi and Kojiro swoop in with their Kitetsuki and manage to whisk Tsugumi and Hideo away as the Oni Kodami lay waste to the castle. The villagers urge Musashi and Kojiro to take Tsugumi away, but when Tsugumi catches wind of it, she flat out refuses to budge. Musashi wonders why they're trying to kick her out, and the villagers spill the beans. They're not kicking her out, they just want to help her escape from Hideo Kosamida, who, after feeling betrayed, went off the deep end and got fixated on Tsugumi. They reckon if Hideo and Tsugumi reunite, he'll try to manipulate her again. Tsugumi insists she'll be fine and won't listen to him anymore, but when the villagers question if that's really true, Tsugumi starts to worry. Then she breaks down in tears, saying she likes it here and all her memories are here. The villagers then decide they'll protect Tsugumi, which only makes her realize she needs to leave. She asks Musashi if she can join them, and Musashi agrees. That night, Musashi asks Tsugumi what changed her mind. Tsugumi explains she's afraid if she obeys Hideo again, she'll end up hurting the people she loves and wants to protect. Tsugumi thinks she's pathetic for not being able to let go of Hideo, but Musashi disagrees, saying it's tough for anyone to let go of their folks. Tsugumi says Hideo isn't her real dad, but Musashi gets where she's coming from, having thought of Kojiro's dad as his own. The next day, Musashi, Kojiro, and Tsugumi hit the road. The village kids chase after them, crying and telling Tsugumi to come back and visit someday. Musashi uses the kaleidoscope and decides to head toward a blue kishin, but Tsugumi wonders what the point of hunting Oni is if there's no one to praise her. Musashi tells her they'll praise her, but Tsugumi doesn't think that's enough to motivate her. They start bickering, but Kojiro reminds them to play nice. Soon after, they stop, and Tsugumi gets pretty clingy to Musashi, rubbing up against him and even taking his shirt off. Musashi feels like Kojiro might get the wrong idea and wonders what to do. Musashi then wonders if he should spill a secret, that he likes older women, and recalls how back in mining school, they get whacked if they talk to younger girls, so they had to focus their attention on the teachers. Meanwhile, Kojiro sees Musashi and Tsugumi getting along and is willing to support them, but at the same time, he's not quite on board. He wonders if he should spill his secret that, being a bushi, girls would avoid him, and he never had any romantic entanglements, but he's worried since minors were popular, Musashi might have had relationships with lots of girls, and that'll set them apart. Musashi and Kojiro wonder what Tsugumi's planning, and Tsugumi reveals she just wants to be friends with them. She's never made friends outside her bushi gang and doesn't know how that works. That's why she avoided Kojiro, thinking he might be mad at her for calling him a driver, and took his shirt off, because her sister once told her if she ever found herself in a situation where she didn't know what to do, to get naked. Musashi and Kojiro assure her they're already friends, and the situation is resolved. Come morning, while everyone's sleeping, an Oni appears and snatches Kojiro's sword. Musashi sees it and starts chasing after it. He tries to chop off its horn, but his metal stick breaks. The Oni leads him to a field with swords, where Musashi spots a person, Shiro Inukai, who tells him he can borrow one of the swords to defeat the Oni. Musashi then grabs one of the swords, feeling energy coursing through him, along with horns sprouting on his body. When the horns disappear, he attacks the Oni and kills it. Shiro wonders if this was Musashi's first time using a Katetsu sword. The Oni's sand gets collected into the sword, and Musashi recalls it's similar to Takeda's Bashi, but then the sword breaks. Musashi apologizes, but Shiro tells him not to sweat it and that the sword was a waste of steel. However, he wonders how Musashi managed to pull so much energy and if he's the chosen one. Shiro's servant, Nanao Inusaka, then shows up, telling him it's time and wondering why Shiro insists on making patterns on the ground with Katetsu swords. Shiro says he feels surrounded by beauties and then explains how he feels with each sword. Nana apologizes for Shiro's kinkiness, and they leave. Musashi asks who they are, but Shiro says they're hired dogs with names not worth sharing. Then Kojiro and Tsugumi show up, and Musashi realizes Shiro and the swords are gone. Musashi tells them what happened, but they wonder if he was dreaming. Musashi then says he can't wait to wield a Kitetsu sword again, even though he doesn't know what that means. Tsugumi then shows her weapon and says they're made of Kitetsu and you can't break an Oni horn without a Kitetsu sword. Musashi and Kojiro then figure they're hard to come by, but Tsugumi tells them to just buy one. Tsugumi explains that once a Kishin shows up and the Bushi kill it, not long after, merchants show up to do business with the Bushi. They head to a merchant's market, pumped to buy a Kitetsu sword. At the wacky merchant's market, Musashi's eyes light up like fireworks at a Bushi convention. Tsugumi spills the beans about using Kitetsu-sen as currency, and how Kitetsu swords are like the rock stars of the show, usually saved for the grand finale. While chomping down snacks, a Bushi pops the question about their band name, but Kojiro blurts out they haven't settled on one yet, sending the Bushi into hysterics. Tsugumi dives into the deep end, asking why they're in the Oni hunting game, and Musashi blurts it's their dream, they want to be the coolest band in town. Tsugumi's mind is blown by the idea of being the coolest, but she dishes out some wisdom, saying they gotta figure out who's gonna be captain to avoid a shipwreck. Musashi nominates Kojiro, since he's got no last name to his claim. Kojiro wonders if this is a prank and was low-key hoping Musashi would pick him, but Musashi's all like, nah, dude, it's chill as long as we're living the dream. The auction for Kitetsu swords kicks off, with 25 flashy swords from the Ryuzoji band up for grabs. Musashi's scratching his head trying to pick one. A lady spills the tea that it's the one that sweeps you off your feet at first sight, introducing herself as Mitsuru Osafune, the head honcho of the Ryuzoji band. Musashi's drawn to her like a moth to a flame, which makes Tsugumi roll her eyes since he didn't even notice her earlier. Musashi's like, I'd never swiped right on a Kitetsu sword before, and Mitsuru's all, it's a big deal, like getting your driver's license. Everyone lines up in front of the sword they want. Musashi goes for the Enmazadachi, a sword Tsugumi finds as basic as plain toast, but Mitsuru's thinking, this kid's got taste. Kojiro's on the fence and ends up choosing a sword that's been ghosted by everyone else, the Vorpal Cherry Blossoms, cause it reminds him of himself, earning him a thumbs up from Mitsuru. While they're mulling it over, Mitsuru's like, quit stalling and pick your swords already. Musashi picks his, and then he's engulfed in a glowing aura. Mitsuru spills the beans to Kojiro that they're all going through the sword trial, and the auction's like a Tinder date where the sword picks its soulmate. Kojiro picks his sword, and he's sweating buckets, feeling like he's been hit by Cupid's arrow. His life flashes before his eyes, and after surviving the roller coaster, the sword lights up with flashy stone wings sprouting from his bod. After acing the test, Tsugumi gives him a high five. Kojiro's feeling like the sword's his new BFF. He notices others passing too, but with colors more vibrant than a rainbow. Mitsuru spills the tea that it's the color of their souls, and the gems in the sword light up to match. There are 5 colors, and depending on the hue, they get different superpowers. Kojiro's color is blue, which is about as common as a cold, but they want to snag at least one red in their band. Musashi's still on trial duty. He's lost in a dark void and then gets a flashback to his village and the last stand of Jisai King Maki, who's babbling something, but Musashi's got selective hearing. A hot mess later, a lady pops out of nowhere, but Musashi's got no ears for her. Then she gives him a big bear hug, and Musashi's feeling the warmth. But plot twist, she beefs up and starts dissing him, saying she's better off without him. Suddenly, spikes pop out of Musashi's bod while he's wrapped in a dark aura, and then he flunks the trial. Mitsuru's scratching her head, saying she's never seen a mess like this, but she's heard rumors. Musashi tries other swords, but it's like swiping left on every Tinder match. Mitsuru's like, dude, you can't handle a Kitetsu sword, and those with a burnt soul color get ghosted by every sword. Musashi's like, I'll train harder, but Mitsuru's like, you can't dye your soul color, bro, time to find a new dream. Musashi's soul searching like it's a midlife crisis. He's pondering the meaning of being a Bushi. He flashes back to other Bushi telling him even if he can't hunt Oni, he can still fetch coffee in the castle. Kojiro and Tsugumi roll up, and Musashi's throwing a party hearing Kojiro past. Then a big baddie Kishin crashes the scene and sends its posse of Oni goons from the heavens. Musashi's suddenly sweating bullets, realizing he's about as useful as a chocolate teapot against them. And Oni swoops in for the kill, but Kojiro swoops in like a superhero, wielding his new Katetsu sword. Kojiro goes full ninja and takes down an Oni, saving a mom and her kid, who shower him with gratitude. Kojiro has an epiphany that it's all thanks to the sword that he can now play hero, and they're eating it up like Thanksgiving dinner. The Bull Oni go down for the count, and Mitsuru and the gang throw a victory bash, congratulating Kojiro on his first rodeo. Watching Kojiro in action, Musashi realizes he wanted to hunt Oni just to stick with Kojiro. The Bushi then head off to face the Kishin, and Tsugumi suggests they tag along. They realize Musashi can't go solo without his sidekick. Musashi's scratching his head wondering how to level up his game, when suddenly Shiro pops out of nowhere like a wizard, saying he caught his disastrous trial and his issues with the Black Lightning aura. Shiro then spills the beans that he's got a black aura too, saying they're like soul siblings, and Musashi's got a VIP pass to their crew. Alrighty, buckle up for the roller coaster ride of emotions. So, here we have Shiro. Niagara Falls ain't got nothing on him, blubbering about how over the moon he is to finally meet the mystery man in Musashi who's holding those precious black rocks. According to Shiro, Musashi's itching to beef up and join the Buddy Brigade. He spills the beans that there's a secret recipe to wield the Katetsu swords. All Musashi's gotta do is cozy up to those black stones. Apparently, during his trial, some mystical fog hugged him tight, and he passed out, but all Musashi needs to do is surrender to the vibe. Musashi's scratching his head, wondering just how strong he can get. So, to flex, Shiro whips out his blade and starts sculpting the earth like Picasso on steroids, slicing and dicing until there's a crater big enough to host a pool party. Musashi's like, "Did you seriously use the Katetsu sword for landscaping?" Then, BM, Shiro tosses him a Katetsu sword, urging him to surrender to it, promising he could become the ultimate Katetsu sword. But Musashi ain't buying it. He's all about bro-ing out with his buddies. So, Shiro's brainstorming, suggesting they turn his pals into swords too, so Musashi ain't flying solo. And guess what? He shoves Musashi into the hole, along with a Katetsu sword. Meanwhile, Kojiro, Tsugumi, and the gang are on a wild goose chase to face the Kishin. Tsugumi's sweating bullets, wondering if leading Musashi high and dry was the right call, but Kojiro's like, couldn't do squat for him anyway. Instead of feeding Musashi some pie-in-the-sky dream about wielding a Katetsu sword someday, Kojiro's decided to forge ahead and scope out the Kishin's weak spot for when Musashi joins the party. Tsugumi's over there pondering who Musashi really is. I mean, having those black stones is rarer than finding a unicorn at a bingo night. Could Musashi be some special dude with a royal lineage? Kojiro drops the bomb that Musashi's folks were just regular Joes, farming away like everyone else in Tatsuyama. Tsugumi's a tad let down by that. But hey, turns out Musashi was the only son of a Bushi, and despite the whole Bushi stigma, folks didn't treat him like he had cooties like they did Kojiro. Musashi was all about the sword life, and they clicked. Kojiro reckons Musashi got a sweet deal from the villagers since his folks were sweethearts and didn't give a hoot about what folks thought. Then, Tsugumi's scratching her noggin wondering why the Katetsu swords give him the cold shoulder if he's just a regular Joe. Nanao swings back with Shiro, dinner in tow. She's all, "What happened to Musashi?" And Shiro's like, "Oh, I tossed him in a hole." Nanao's bummed out, see, cause Musashi was nice to her, and she was hoping for another chinwag. She's onto Shiro's shenanigans, thinking he spun Musashi a tall tale to cozy up to him, claiming they're two peas in a pod, and Shiro's like, "Yep, I'll never fib to him." Nanao's like, "Did you find your goddess?" And Shiro's all, "Yep, she's kicking it inside Musashi. She's ready to snatch her up." But Shiro's like, "Nah, gotta snag them black stones too." Then, Nanao connects the dots that Shiro plans to turn Musashi into sword material. Now, Musashi's been free falling for what feels like forever. Then, he spots a sword hurtling down and grabs it, using it to break his fall. But oh snap, those black stones start popping up on him. As he's teetering over a pool of molten lava, he's faced with a tough choice: drop the sword and fry himself, or release his consciousness and turn into a black stone. Musashi starts using the stones to climb, but the goddess inside him is like, "Nah, not today, Satan," and tells him they gotta lay low for now. More stones sprout out of Musashi, and he ends up taking a dive into the scorching magma. Next thing you know, Musashi's waking up in a topsy-turvy world, where the goddess is all, "Stay with me forever." Musashi's like, "Nah, gotta help my buds, even if I can't throw down." But the goddess ain't having it. She grabs him, saying they don't need him, and hits him with a blast from the past. Musashi recalls losing his folks to a plague and being left high and dry. Nobody wanted him, but he got taken in by a family on one condition: keep his trap shut, stay clear of Bashi, and avoid stirring up trouble. One day, he sees his new dad forgot his lunch, so he brings it to him, inadvertently outing himself as the illegitimate son of a married man, causing a whole social ruckus. From then on, it was like he was a ghost, ignored by everyone. He felt dead inside, desperate for someone to notice him. His fam handed him a stone, telling him to chuck it at Jisai, thinking it would redeem him and prove he's not like his folks. After enough pestering, Musashi caves and hurls the stone, declaring the remaining Bashi should bite the dust. The goddess lays it out for Musashi, saying he'd do anything to feel loved, and being a Bashi was just an excuse to hang with his buddy. Being a Bashi and swinging a katana were just means to an end, like that stone he chucked, so a guy like him can't handle a Katetsu sword. The goddess apologizes for the harsh truth bomb, but that's how she's breaking his fighting spirit and keeping him from getting nabbed. As Musashi turns into a stone, she embraces him, saying they should just chill there forever. Meanwhile, Kojiro, Tsugumi, and the gang roll up to face the Kishin. Let the showdown begin. So, picture this: the Bashi squad stumbles upon the headless Kishin and thinks, well, someone beat us to the punch. But hold the phone, Tsugumi's like, nah, this bad boy is still kicking. See, when Kishins kick the bucket, they morph into Katetsu, and since his horn's still intact, he's alive and kicking up. Kojiro's all, right, let's scope out his weak spot. But alas, nada. So, he figures the horn must be chilling on the Kishin's noggin. Lo and behold, Shiro pops up and confirms the horn's on the Kishin's head. The Bashi connect the dots and realize Shiro's the one who did the old chop on the Kishin's head. They circle him like a bunch of hawks, demanding to know where the head's at so they can snuff out the Kishin and claim the Katetsu. But guess what? They end up as easy pickings for Shiro, who then declares he's there for the Bashi's Katetsu swords. Once they clock that he's a sword hunter, the remaining Bashi gear up to throw down. They throw everything but the kitchen sink at Shiro, but he wipes the floor with them like he's playing whack-a-mole. Shiro clocks who Kojiro is and declares Musashi's already morphed into a Katetsu sword and Kojiro's next in line. Meanwhile, Musashi's chilling like a villain in stone form. The obsidian goddess notices Nanao using her Katetsu sword to yank Musashi out and is disappointed they can still snatch him up even in magma, spelling capture for sure. Musashi then opens his eyes to find his upper half back to normal, surprising Nanao, who thought he'd turned to stone. Nanao spills the beans that she was trying to wrap up the mission and snag the goddess, but she yanked Musashi out of the hole too soon. Musashi recalls what went down and rushes to the mountaintop, thanking Nanao for the assist. On his way up, Musashi mulls over what the goddess told him, claiming being a Bashi means more to him than just hanging with his bud. After tossing that stone at Jisai, Musashi felt like he was the one who should bite the dust, not Jisai. That night, he pays Jisai a visit, apologizing for his antics. Jisai's like, chill, no biggie, and tells Musashi he gets where he's coming from. Jisai spills that Kojiro was in a similar boat once, but being buds with Kojiro, he bailed him out. As Jisai thanks him, he offers Musashi to stick around and live with him. Musashi's all in and ends up being raised by Jisai. The Bashi try to make a run for it, which ticks off Shiro, who slays the fleeing Bashi, claiming cowardly souls ain't his jam. He ain't about that life, but since he promised to turn Musashi's buddies into Katetsu swords, he'll at least snag Kojiro. Once Shiro's hot on his tail, Kojiro decides to head back up the mountain to let the others split. Cornered, Kojiro whips out his sword and takes a swing at Shiro, but he misses the mark. Shiro easily floors Kojiro, then hoists him up, gushing about how he digs the vibe of valiant Bashi souls. Shiro's about to drop the hammer on Kojiro when he senses Musashi's presence, halting in his tracks and turning to see Musashi. Shiro then backs off from Kojiro, letting Musashi and Tsugumi approach, where Musashi's all, I'm back, baby. Seeing Musashi rocking a Katetsu sword, Kojiro's stoked, but Musashi spills that he can't quite pull off the fancy light show anymore. But hey, the fog and black stones ain't coming out while he's holding it. Shiro chimes in that the sword neither accepts nor rejects him. Nanao hops over to Shiro, admitting she snatched Musashi too soon, and Shiro figures she was eager to wrap things up and got sloppy. Shiro cuts her some slack, cause hey, the situation just got interesting, telling her to check out Musashi, half merged with the Black Stone, and the goddess hasn't given her verdict yet. If they attack him, the goddess will pass her judgment. Then, Nanao revs up the goddess capture operation, claiming all she needs to do is off Musashi. Kojiro wonders why they want her, but Musashi spills the beans that they're after him. Tsugumi's like, if that's the case, why'd you come? And Musashi reveals it's cause he knew they were in a bind and Bushi stick together. Remembering Jisai's lesson that he needs to fight for someone, Kojiro's on board, and the trio gears up to take on Shiro and Nanao. Nanao spills that they'll only tango with her and unleashes her Katetsu sword, the 7-bell armadillo sword. She morphs her weapon into 7 flying swords and starts raining down blows on the trio. Since he's not an Oni, Musashi figures he can take her down with his sword and tries to land a hit. He dodges 3 of her blades and uses his sword drawing technique to dodge the 4th and leap towards her, but she uses the remaining swords to push him back. Since they can't reach her with her swords in the way, Musashi suggests they break him, and Kojiro claims he's got a plan cooked up. So, Kojiro's cooking up a plan to take down Nanao, who's thinking they'll come at her from all directions. But hey, she's got 7 blades, so it's essentially 7 against 3, and she'll still have the upper hand, right? Nanao is left scratching her head when Musashi and Tsugumi back off. She's like, wait, does that mean Kojiro's taking her on solo? Is he sacrificing himself so Musashi can skedaddle? But no way, she's letting Musashi slip away, so she lunges at him with one of her blades, only to have Tsugumi snag it with her Katetsu whip. The gang figured Nanao would go after Musashi or Kojiro, so it was a piece of cake for Tsugumi to snag a blade, knowing where it was headed. Then, Musashi slices off a chunk of Nanao's staff that forms one of her blades, leaving her with just 6 more. Meanwhile, Shiro's making a beeline for Musashi. Nanao tries to tell him they can still fight and there's no need for them to team up just yet. But hold the phone! Shiro stops dead in his tracks and spins around, asking Nanao why he'd fight alongside her. He claims they'd never fought together before, cause there's no need, and he prefers flying solo. Shiro tells her to step aside, cause weak allies are just dead weight. Since the goddess isn't doing squat, Shiro's bored out his mind. Cue is Blade Ring activation. Tsugumi breaks it down for us. The Blade Ring is like these cool light halos that pop up when you channel power into a Katetsu sword, and since Shiro hasn't busted it out yet, it means he's about to unleash his true power. Shiro swings his sword, but apparently, nada happens. Moments later, a ginormous cube of light engulfs the whole area. Shiro then flips the cube, causing a bunch of Bashi to start plummeting skyward, while Musashi and the crew manage to cling on using their swords. Standing atop the cube, Shiro spots most of the weak Bashi have bit the dust, but a few are still kicking. He starts slicing smaller cubes into the ground, splitting up the weak Bashi and sending them tumbling. Shiro then wonders why they bunch up, and if they want to take down the Oni, they should just get stronger. To him, weak Bashi are like bugs, making him realize that's why they group up, cause otherwise, they're weaklings. Musashi and Kojiro ain't vibing with that, but since Shiro can't wrap his head around it, he smacks the ground, sending everyone tumbling. As Musashi falls, time freezes, and enter the Obsidian Goddess, claiming she finally figured out what kind of person Musashi is. She spills the tea that Shiro and Nanao are their enemies, trying to off Musashi and snag his power. Since Musashi biting the dust would be a bummer for the goddess, she decides to use her remaining power to at least save him. Realizing he'll be the only one left standing, Musashi rejects it, claiming he's weak and can't survive on his own. When he's by himself, he loses sight of what matters and can't even dream on his own. But when he's with others, he feels the power inside him and wants to see how far they can go. The goddess thought his selfishness made him unworthy of being her vessel, but now he's got allies and seems to have the power to rally others to his cause. That's a valuable quality, cause teaming up with comrades to fight is the only way us fragile humans can take on the Kishin. The goddess decides to give him her power and will show him how to fight using his body. As time resumes, big old black stones start appearing, and the sword's energy starts getting sucked in. There's a black stone that can summon the power of all the Katetsu swords. The goddess inside Musashi's body then reaches out and grabs Shiro's sword. She comments that Shiro's got a pretty sweet sword and dissolves his cube, putting the mountain back where it belongs and saving those who were falling. Shiro's stoked seeing her in action. Tsugumi's shocked to see a black blade ring, while Kojiro feels like Musashi's a whole new person. The goddess tells Kojiro to watch how her power works. Nanao starts attacking her, but all her attacks get distorted and repelled. The goddess explains that those with black stones have control over the sword's energy and can either draw it in or push it away. But because of the unique nature of the power, the vortex of magnetism can leave folks confused and unable to use the Kitetsu sword, which is the real deal behind the legend they know. Shiro snags back his sword. Kojiro figures if Musashi can repel any attack, he'd be unstoppable. The goddess claims it won't last long, cause her existence is fragile, and she's been resting inside Musashi. Taking action in the material world quickly drains her power, and she needs to head back to sleep soon, and when she does, Musashi will lose the obsidian power. Since they'll still want to off him, she wonders if his friends will still want to fight alongside him. Kojiro confirms, and the goddess thanks him. Shiro claims he's wanted to meet the goddess for ages and asks her to join him, but the goddess declines. She decides to shoo Shiro and Nanao away before she falls asleep and borrows power from the Bushi. The goddess starts absorbing the Kitetsu sword's energy from the Bushi. She claims Bushi might be bugs that need to band together to survive, but the glow of a single sword, when united with others, can shine like a constellation. As she absorbs the energy and gears up for the attack, Shiro's blown away by the power that's about to be unleashed. So, the obsidian goddess tells Musashi she's gonna catch some Z's inside him again, and no matter what foes he faces, he better not kick the bucket, cause he's her vessel, and cause Jisai kicked the bucket before they could finish what they started. Musashi's like, what's Jisai got to do with this? But the goddess ain't got time to explain and decides to show Musashi how she throws down in the material world. The goddess gathers energy from all the Kitetsu swords and unleashes an attack towards Shiro and Nanao, wiping out multiple hills behind them. Musashi's back in the driver's seat, but he can still feel the battle vibes. Kojiro and Tsugumi rush over to Musashi, stoked they won and blown away that Musashi took down Shiro in one shot. Tsugumi's like, was Musashi possessed by an evil spirit or what? But Kojiro's like, nah, the goddess was chill. Tsugumi's worried about Kojiro's future cause he instantly trusts any girl who's a tad nice to him. Then Tsugumi points out Musashi's sword, and he sees the sword breaking again. Mitsuru explains that the Kitetsu sword breaks if it channels more energy than it can handle, and the sword breaking is a sign of Musashi's potential. The other Bushi then notice there's a big square hole where the Kishin's body used to be. Elsewhere, Shiro busts out his move to open a hole in the sky and jets out with Nanao, who's nabbed the Kishin. The Bushi hold a funeral ceremony to honor those who bit the dust in the showdown with Shiro. As folks gather around the Kitetsu swords, mourning the fallen, Tsugumi explains that Kitetsu swords are special and their wielder's feelings remain inside them, and some folks treat them as a Bushi's life symbol. Kojiro remembers his old man saying something similar. However, Tsugumi ain't buying it cause her swords belong to her sister, and there's no replacing her. That night, Mitsuru invites the group to crash at his castle. Before they call it a night, Musashi has a favor to ask. The next day, Mitsuru announces that Musashi's gonna retake the sword test. Musashi picks the same sword as his first test. Spectators gather, wondering if Musashi will make the cut this time, but Kojiro and Tsugumi know the goddess has bounced for now, so there shouldn't be any black stones popping up. Musashi tells Tsugumi he's not sure if the sword's a Bushi's life symbol either, but Jisai took care of the swords in the Bushi way, so he wants to learn more about them. Even though the dead might be gone for good, if their stuff's still here and you cherish it, that's a symbol they were once alive. Then Musashi grabs the sword, and it instantly lights up red, passing the test. Everyone's psyched and congratulates Musashi. Kojiro's like, people weren't this hyped when I passed, and Tsugumi reminds him blue's just an average color, while Musashi's red is rare and powerful. Then Musashi approaches Kojiro and tells him he wants to chat. The two head off to some private spot, and Musashi asks if during his test, Kojiro saw anything from his past, but Kojiro says it happened so fast he's not sure. Musashi spills he saw Jisai and thinks the goddess knew him. Musashi wonders if Jisai mentioned the goddess, but Kojiro ain't got that memory, saying he just left him scrolls, a katana, and Kitetsuki. Since they only saw Kitetsuki from Bushi outside the city, Kojiro wonders if Jisai had a connection with Bushi outside the city. Elsewhere, Nanao describes Jisai and claims they were on the hunt for him, the big-time criminal who bolted with the goddess inside him. But if Musashi's got the goddess, then the description doesn't fit. Shiro claims it's been 15 years and it looks like the goddess has chosen a new vessel for some reason, but Musashi seems clueless about the goddess. The Bushi camp's wrapping up, and the Bushi are starting to split. Kojiro always thought his old man lived solo in their village, but now he regrets not chatting more with him. With the Bushi world ahead of him, Kojiro wonders if he's following in his old man's footsteps, if he'd be able to learn more about him. Everyone's split, but Kojiro went somewhere and Musashi and Tsugumi are waiting for him. Tsugumi's like, Kojiro always seemed less motivated compared to Musashi, but then Kojiro returns, claiming he's motivated and went to grab supplies and a map. The group then checks out the map and gets hyped seeing how big Hinamoto is, but they wonder where to head next. Kojiro explains where they are and suggests going east, and the group's down with that. So, Musashi, Kojiro, and Tsugumi are trudging through this forest, right? And guess what? They end up playing tug-of-war with this Kitetsuki thing. And man, it's hotter than a sauna, so Tsugumi starts griping, and before you know it, they're squabbling with Kojiro. Musashi's like, hey, let me handle this Kitetsuki gig. Kojiro and Tsugumi are cool with it, plotting to let it slip to freak him out. But boom! They get snagged by this green octopus-looking Oni. Musashi spots someone else caught by the Oni too. Feeling like they ain't gonna take this Oni business lying down, Musashi whips out his sword, ready to throw down. He zeroes in on the Oni's horn, launches an attack, bam! Sends that Oni packing and slurps up its Kitetsu. After saving Kojiro and Tsugumi, Musashi checks on the other person and bam! It's this young, gorgeous gal. She's kinda lost, but when Musashi explains he rescued her, she's all thankful. Then, this old dude pops up, calling her princess, all worried cause she's been separated from the group. The gal explains she got jumped by an Oni, and Musashi saved her. She whispers to the old man, who saunters over to Musashi, saying the princess wants to know his name. Tsugumi's like, hold up, gotta introduce yourself first. So, the dude apologizes and introduces her as the daughter of Lord Nobumitsu, head honcho of the Sarawatari Bashi under the Usuji Alliance, Michiru Sarawatari. They're cruising to the Harima port to attend this showdown that'll decide the nation's fate. So, they tag along with Michiru, rolling in her tank like Kitetsuki. Musashi senses Michiru's vibe has changed, like she's gone ice cold. Since he's taken a shine to her, he's like, let's break the ice. He's all, we're lost. But hey, at least Michiru's got a map of the woods, but Michiru's like, zero reaction. Tsugumi spots this black patch on the map and is like, what's that? Musashi's trying to keep the convo going with Michiru, asking where she's from. No response. The old man's like, they're from Bichu. Kojiro asks about the Harima port, and the old dude's like, Lord Usuji called them to whack a Kishin. Thinking Michiru's into sword talk, Musashi's like, what's your fighting style? But, nada. Kojiro's like, what's the Usuji Alliance? And Tsugumi's like, it's like a friendly neighborhood of Bushi bands. Musashi's getting ticked, telling his buddies to quit changing the subject while he's trying to chat with Michiru. Michiru's shocked Musashi remembers her name. As the road gets bumpy, Michiru and Musashi end up tumbling off the Kitetsuki and straight down a cliff. As they're falling, Michiru whips out her sword and conjures up a crystal umbrella, sending them flying. Musashi's like, dang, nice sword, and Michiru's all, thanks, my dad said the same. Musashi's like, why the sudden chatter? And Michiru's like, promise not to laugh, explaining she's usually just with the old man and is kinda shy, unsure how to jump into convos. Musashi laughs, relieved she's not mad. Michiru asks him to head south with her, but Musashi's like, we're headed east. Michiru's like, yeah, but that black spot on the map's a Kishin. Look ahead. Musashi spots this massive black wall. Michiru's like, that's the first Oni that popped up 150 years ago. She spills the beans about how it split Hinamoto in two. Some folks saw Oni as enemies, others as gods. The latter built mining towns, feeding the Oni minerals, which made him grow and cover half of Hinamoto. They called this Oni the Black Kishin. The old dude says this Kishin's still growing, and if it ain't taken down, it'll wreck Hinamoto. But he thinks Tatsumi Usuji, their alliance leader, can whack it. He's one of the big 5 generals. And knocking out the Black Kishin on Awaji Island's crucial to taking it down. So, the old dude and Michiru head off solo. Musashi and Kojiro wonder if Jisai knew this and decide to check the scrolls. Tsugumi says every Bushi gang's got records on each Kishin's name and traits. Kojiro's like, why'd dad have him? Tsugumi figures he must have been in a Bushi gang. Tsugumi says each scroll's got a seal for ID, and checking it, sees it's from the Usuji gang. At Harima Port, a bunch of Bushi gangs gather. The Amano Bushi are bummed to be on the sidelines, but they know they're small fries compared to the rest. Haruhisa from the Shimazubashi asks Natsuki if he remembers what their dad said, and Natsuki's like, whoever grabs the Kishin's horn on Awaji becomes the clan's top dog. Fuyui's sure Akihiro can do it. Tatsuomi remembers getting a report from Kanatatsu that the obsidian goddess was seen in the big old eastern Namasaka mine. Nanao snagged some snacks, wondering if Shiro will be stoked, but then he's like, wouldn't it be better to hunt down a Katetsu for him? But since he's off duty right now, he's like, no freebies. The 8 obsidians hit up Nanao, hearing he and Shiro found the obsidian goddess. Nanao's like, yup, and Shiro's like, guess I found her. Seiroku's like, heard she turned you down, and they start squabbling. The rest say Bushi ain't supposed to snatch up the goddess and their duties to keep the Kishin alive, so they can keep kicking it together. They hatch a plan and send someone after Musashi, who hasn't seen it coming. So, Kojiro's itching to learn more about his dad, wanting to hit up Harima Port cause the Yasuji might know something, and the gang's all in. Musashi and his crew hit the shores of Harima. With Musashi and Tsugumi laying eyes on the ocean for the first time, they start splashing around like kids at a water park. Then Tsugumi spots the Yasuji clan emblem and they're off to the Yasuji mobile fortress, Shirya Castle, hoping to dig up some dirt on Kojiro's dad. But hold up! They're stopped by Kanatatsu Neo, who's basically like, nope, can't meet Yasuji. He's busy prepping for battle and doesn't have time to chit-chat with every low-rank Bushi. When asked which Bayan they're from, Musashi proudly drops the King Makibashi name, but Kanatatsu's like, who now? Kojiro tries to save face, claiming they're part of the Yasuji alliance. Cue the awkward silence as Musashi and the gang feel the vibe shift. Kanatatsu now wants them VIP captured. Musashi's not one to give up without a fight and goes for Akihiro Shimazu but gets laid out with one kick. Then, a chopper arrives and everyone bows. Kijinosuke Noguchi explains it's the Yasuji boss's ride. Musashi's hoping for Yasuji to step out but gets a jaw-dropper when Naotora Takeda appears. Musashi greets Naotora, who plays the Who Are You card, making Musashi feel about 2 inches tall before admitting it's just a joke. While everyone bows but Musashi and Kojiro, Tsugumi's puzzled by their buddy-buddy act with Naotora. Turns out, Naotora's a big deal, one of the 5 great generals, like Yasuji. This realization hits Musashi and Kojiro like a ton of bricks. Naotora is informed about the need to capture Musashi, Kojiro, and Tsugumi for not being part of their ranks, but Naotora plays the There With Me card. However, Naotora is barred from taking Musashi to see Yasuji. Naotora meets with Tatsuomi Yasuji, who orders the execution of the 3 outsiders for the sake of blood unity. Naotora spins a tale, claiming they're distant relatives, which cools Tatsuomi's jets. Naotora questions the summons, and Tatsuomi hints at wanting help to take down the Kishin of Awaji. Meanwhile, on Awaji Island, Yataro Inuda vows to crush the Yasuji clan from within after facing the Green Kishin, Yamada no Orochi. Back with Musashi, Kojiro, and Tsugumi, they're with Shunrai Yamamoto and Aoshi Sanada, who make it clear they won't get to meet Tatsuomi due to their outsider status. Musashi's just there to inquire about Kojiro's dad, but Shunrai doubts the Yasuji clan has anything to gain from that. The clan values family above all, especially true for the Yasuji Bushi. Musashi's hopeful they can make a run for it when they face the Kishin, but Aoshi warns them off, explaining they're up against Yamada no Orochi, a far bigger threat than any Kishin they've faced, one of the 4 scourges born from the Black Kishin. To defeat the Black Kishin, they must first take down its descendants. Upon reaching Shirya Castle, Musashi has Tsugumi boost him over the wall, eager to learn more about Kojiro's dad. Over the wall, he's awed by the castle's size and meets Tatsuomi, not realizing who he is. They share a moment of respect for the Bushi and their families before Kanatatsu reveals Musashi's been speaking with Tatsuomi Yasuji himself. Caught in the act, Musashi tries to assert his connection to Naotora, but Kanatatsu demands proof of his allegiance. Musashi, clueless about ranks, finds himself in hot water. Tatsuomi, however, orders him taken to the barracks instead of executing him. Kojiro and Tsugumi are also caught and brought to the barracks. Musashi remains optimistic, seeing this as a chance to learn about Kojiro's father. They're given new clothes, and Musashi finds himself among other Bushi, realizing his knack for sizing up the hierarchy will come in handy. Tensions rise as factions form, and Katsumi Amako and Akihiro Shimazu vie for leadership. A veiled Bushi, Michiru Saruwatari, approaches Musashi, expressing concern for the impending battle. 2 female Bushi wish for a more competent commander, prompting Musashi to throw his hat into the ring. A three-way fight ensues, with Musashi blocking both Katsumi's and Akihiro's attacks, proving his mettle. Musashi's pumped to face off against the samurai to test his mettle. He blocks Katsumi's II strike, leaving Katsumi gobsmacked. Haruhisa Shimazu tells Akihiro to take down both Musashi and Katsumi and to whip out his Kitetsu sword. Akihiro, making it look easy, splits the duo and sends Musashi flying. As Akihiro starts walloping Musashi, Haruhisa chimes in, reminding them they're not here for a polite kendo match but to slay a Kishin. Akihiro floors Musashi, telling him his swordplay's kinda meh. Musashi snaps back to reality just in time to see Katsumi biting the dust against Akihiro. Eager to jump back into the fray, Musashi's halted by Akihiro pointing out he's out of bounds. Musashi's realization hits, he lost, and it wasn't even a proper Kitetsu sword fight. Katsumi's itching to continue, and Akihiro's game. He gears up for another round of beatdown, but Musashi steps in. Apologizing, he acknowledges Akihiro as their leader. They need a strong leader to face the Kishin, and Akihiro's just flexed his muscles impressively. Katsumi's on board too. Akihiro, baffled by Musashi's offer of friendship, calls him a fibber, arguing no one befriends their beatdown artist, it's either hate or fear. Musashi denies any hard feelings, leading Akihiro to suspect Musashi's playing the long game, not wanting to be seen as a loser and thus buttering up to get in everyone's good books. Akihiro reckons Musashi scoped out the joint upon arrival, figuring out who to suck up to. Katsumi jumps to Musashi's defense, but Akihiro's having none of it, accusing Katsumi of quitting mid-fight and being too happy to have Musashi give him an out. Akihiro declares neither Katsumi nor Musashi are cut out for leadership since they're self-centered, but since he won, he's the boss and everyone's gotta listen up. Later, Akihiro's at the strategy meet with the big shots. He tells his unit they're hitting Awaji Island tomorrow and are frontliners. His orders are gospel, fight when told, retreat on command. Any dissent gets the Shimazu treatment, which pretty much scares everyone. Musashi speaks up, accusing Akihiro of fearmongering. Akihiro shoots back, insisting on obedience, since that's the Bushi way. Musashi disagrees, sharing his background of Oni worshipping and how dissenters were treated like dirt. He argues for open dialogue, especially if Akihiro screws up, since they're all in this together. Akihiro, annoyed, dismisses the team. Everyone scatters, leaving Musashi flabbergasted. He quizzes Michiru, equating blind obedience to slavery. Michiru sees beauty in pursuing others' dreams, leaving Musashi disappointed but thankful for Kojiro and Tsugumi's support. However, he finds them having a blast with their unit, seemingly fine with sticking around. The next day, Akihiro lays out their role, hold the Oni while the Shimazu do the slaying. Musashi's irked at Akihiro hogging the glory but gets told that's just how it is. Katsumi thanks Musashi for standing up for him but advises him to let it go. While peeling potatoes, Musashi's frustrated everyone's following Akihiro's lead, but he's determined not to fold. Kijinosuke Noguchi joins him, saying he's felt alone too until he saw Musashi soloing it and decided to reach out. Then Kanatatsu pops up, questioning why Bushi are peeling potatoes. Kijinosuke bows down, recognizing Kanatatsu as the big boss of the First Division. Kuriko Usami, the Usuji band strategist, outlines their mission, lure the lesser Oni on Awaji into one spot, with Kanatatsu leading. Kanatatsu heads back to his paperwork, unfinished tax reviews and all, telling Musashi and Kijinosuke to rejoin their unit. Musashi admits to a spat, earning Kanatatsu's scorn for being weak. Musashi's peeved at being labeled weak when Oni suddenly attack their ships. He sees a chance to prove his worth, attacking with his sword, but it bounces off an Oni's horn. Meanwhile, Kuriko explains the Oni horn's toughness, beyond most Bushi's cutting ability. As Musashi struggles, Kanatatsu steps in, slicing the Oni horns effortlessly. Tatsuomi Usuji highlights Kanatatsu's strength, having bestowed part of his name on him. Kanatatsu demands accurate battle records from Masaki Amakasu, annoyed at vague tallies. He then rallies his men, warning of more Oni. A larger group appears, and Yataro Inuda notes that a single great Oni can spawn 100 equally strong offspring, hence their unstoppable nature. The crew fears death, but Musashi insists they'll win, ignored by all. Then Kanatatsu declares victory, vowing to wipe out 100 Oni in an instant. Musashi's miffed at being overlooked. Kanatatsu, annoyed by the chaotic Oni appearance, lines them up with his Kitetsu sword, slicing off their horns in one go. Musashi's awed by Kanatatsu rallying everyone. Akihiro steps up, slicing an Oni horn, impressing Musashi who'd failed. Kijinosuke attributes it to the sword's energy circuit. Tough horns require the band's collective energy. Watching everyone work together, Musashi realizes their respect for Akihiro wasn't fear but shared goals. Musashi admits his blunder. Tatsuomi's having a secret rendezvous with Naotora, dishing out the latest island gossip. Apparently, Kanatatsu's been a busy bee, pulling off a second and third wave of troops on the island. The big scoop? The obsidian goddess is in town, and snagging her could mean curtains for the Oni hunting biz. But, as luck would have it, the bad guys are also RSVP'd to the party. Tatsuomi's smelling a rat in the ranks, predicting that when Yamada no Orochi crashes the bash, it'll either be the Black Dogs or one of their minions trying to rain on the Usuji parade. Kuroko's on mole patrol, and they're ready to pounce once they sniff him out. Naotora's piecing out, hinting they're gonna need a bigger boat. Cut to the victory party where everyone's popping the sake, except Natsuki, who's sulking in the corner about Akihiro stealing his thunder. Decides to go brood with Tokisame and Tadayuki because, obviously, that's the solution. Fui's wondering if they should be allowed to storm off, but Haruhisa's like, chill, let the kids take a timeout. Kijinosuke and the girl squad are on Musashi manhunt, pondering if he's pulled a Houdini. Meanwhile, Musashi's in a funk, fearing he's about to become the island's laughingstock with his zip knowledge on sword energy and feeling like a total noob. Just as he's about to RSVP to the pity party, he contemplates making a run for it. Enter Katsumi, catching Musashi with his bags packed. He's like, running away. Classic move, but FYI, it's illegal. He shares his own sob story of talk big fall hard, but notes Musashi kept the chatter alive for the crew. Despite Musashi's cluelessness about the Katetsu blades, Katsumi gives him props for his IAI block skills. Musashi's all thanks and feels. Katsumi's getting deep, saying he's got to look after his peeps as the heir, but admits he couldn't cut it as the unit's head honcho. Musashi's curious why the big fuss about being the leader, and Katsumi spills that Awaji's his old hood, overrun by Oni back in the day. He wanted to lead the charge for a homecoming victory. Before bouncing, Katsumi muses that Musashi's got his own Oni fish to fry, leaving Musashi pondering his Oni vendetta and whether to stick around post-embarrassment. While tallying up their Katetsu loot, they notice Musashi's MIA, likely hit the road given his ghosted gear. But then, Musashi marches in, drama queen style, declaring his pathetic self needs an upgrade. Cue the training montage with Katsumi the next day. Yataro's clocking the obsidian goddess countdown, baffled why she'd pick a lightweight like Musashi. He grills Michiru on her prime directive to ice the goddess as host. Michiru's still on the lookout, with Yataro hinting their stones will have him meet cute. He's got big dreams for Michiru, his MVP despite previously dubbing her junk and tossing her aside. Yet, she proved her mettle with the Katetsu sword, earning her the name Michiru, aka 3 and now, being the 3000th in line. Fueled by not wanting to revert to the trash heap, Michiru's on a mission. Her handler's nudging her to off Musashi ASAP before the Usujis catch on. She's on it, eyeing Musashi and Katsumi's training session, realizing no one's caught onto the goddess inside him, musing they still have time. But the minute they met, she knew he was the target, yet finds herself falling for him, hitting pause on her killer instincts. Musashi's asking Michiru to sync their sword energy, curious about the feels. She agrees, and boom, black crystals everywhere. Michiru realizes this was Yataro's grand plan, but now he'll pinpoint their location. As they morph into a flying black crystal, Kuroko traps them with his Katetsu jailbreak. Back to human form, Michiru's over Musashi, playing bodyguard. Kuroko spills to Tatsuomi about Michiru possibly being a black dog spy or even Princess Sarawatari. Michiru's freaking they'll uncover Musashi's goddess gig. Kuroko's brainstorm leads Tatsuomi to declare Musashi the enemy spy, cue the dramatic crucifixion scene. Michiru's swearing a rescue, hitting up Yataro with her stone. Kuroko's been waiting for this, pinpointing the call to Awaji's south side, setting the stage for the enemy base raid. The Bushi squad's gearing up for the Awaji showdown. Tatsuomi's laying out the boss fight with Yamada no Orochi, boasting a special defense shield reflecting all attacks. But crack those 8 heads horns, and it's game over. The prize? A personal fortress. The Shimazu are hyped but benched by Kanatatsu, thanks to Musashi and Michiru's shady status, crushing their glory dreams. Haruhisa's left to prove Musashi and Michiru's innocence as they prep for their biggest battle yet, proving they're not the party poopers. Yataro's on the horn with Seiroku, spilling the beans that he's found the obsidian goddess, but she's chilling with the Usuji army like it's a sleepover. Seiroku, ever the strategist, suggests he and Shiro crash the party and rough up the Usuji Bushi while Yataro plays capture the flag with the goddess. Seiroku's mind blown that Yataro managed to spot the goddess and wonders how he pulled it off. Plot twist, one of Yataro's daughters stumbled upon her. Meanwhile, Michiru's on a rescue mission, freeing Musashi. But just as Musashi's hoping for a hero's welcome, Akihiro shows up, not with cake and confetti, but with a sword to Musashi's neck, demanding a tell-all to prove he's not in cahoots with the Shimazu. Musashi's like, dude, chill, but realizes Akihiro's not in a joking mood. Akihiro's brooding over family drama, suspecting his dad's plotting a red wedding Usuji style on Awaji Island. Just then, 3 Oni crash the scene, announcing they're here to help their big sis snatch back the obsidian goddess. Seeing Michiru mute as a mime, they wonder if she's hit her expiry date, given she's the older model. But noticing Musashi and Michiru's buddy-buddy vibe, the Oni spill the tea that Michiru's been playing the long game, planning to off Musashi for the goddess. Musashi's in denial, believing Michiru's not the backstabbing type, despite her teary confession and the Oni betting on a love betrayal plot twist. As Michiru sprouts crystals and Daddy Dearest pops in, urging her to wrap up her mission, one Oni, Minami, decides to speed things up by shoving Michiru at Musashi for a stab and grab. Musashi dodges, slices off Minami's fingers, and pulls a Family Matters speech. The Oni, feeling betrayed, leap at them, and Michiru goes full bodyguard mode, taking the hit for Musashi. Just as it looks like Michiru's about to become Oni Chao, Kuroko, Kanatatsu, Masaki, and the Bushi gang swoop in, slicing and dicing. But these Oni have the Regan cheat code on, bouncing back with a hand over the goddess' demand, making Kanatatsu suspect Michiru or Musashi might be the divine one. Kuroko jumps into medic mode, binding Michiru's wounds with some sort energy stitches. Musashi's puzzled by Kuroko's sudden nice streak, mistaking battlefield triage for friendship. Meanwhile, Kanatatsu and the Bushi squad go ham on the Oni, leaving 3 standing. Minami and Iwanami, sensing a power-up opportunity, decide to chow down on Mishima, merging into an ultimate Oni form. When they unleash a reflective shield, more Oni join the buffet rush towards the city. The Usuji Bushi scatter to play heroic firefighters. Kuroko holds Musashi back, promising protection in a watch-and-learn moment. Minami, now an Oni behemoth, explains the survival of the fittest, mirroring Yataro's belief that the weak feed the strong, a twisted mirror of Bushi energy hoarding. Enter Tatsuomi, glowing with the power of friendship and Kitetsu energy, turning his men into Super Bushi. He schools Yataro on the joys of sharing and beefing up, slicing through Oni like a hot knife through butter. The Usuji chain gang tactic pins Minami down, and Kanatatsu casually decapitates her horn. Game over. Kuroko's pondering the Oni invasion logistics, given the castle's no Oni allowed shield. Tatsuomi's scratching his head too until Shiro waltzes in, admitting he let the Oni squad in with his sword, probably with a cheeky my bad. And there you have it, folks, another day in the Wild East, where family drama, Oni invasions, and accidental admissions of guilt keep things spicy. The Usuji Bushi squad clinch the win, but Akihiro's feeling left out, like he missed the memo on Bring Your Own Energy Chain Day. Kuroko's like, dude, it's a VIP energy club, you gotta train to join. Then Shiro waltzes in, boasting about his Oni invite and flaunting Tatsuomi Usuji's Kitetsu sword like it's a limited edition sneaker drop. Kanatatsu goes for the swipe, but Shiro's dodging like it's a game of laser tag. Meanwhile, Kojiro and Tsugumi are on a quest for Musashi's lost sword, probably checking under couch cushions. The Usujis form their exclusive energy chain to trap Shiro, with Kanatatsu winding up for the grand finale. Plot twist, the energy link drops faster than a bad cell connection, and Kanatatsu's left hanging. Shiro's like, cut the cord, guys, revealing his energy slicing antics. Enter Seiroku Inukawa, schooling Shiro on ally reveal spoilers, then effortlessly snipping the Bushi's energy ties like he's canceling subscriptions. Seiroku tells Shiro to clean house, but Shiro's got a crush on Musashi, calling him interesting and special, like Musashi's the last slice of pizza. He hints Michiru's got that goddess vibe and tells Musashi to scram cause he's about to go full villain. Musashi's stuck in hero mode, refusing to leave his buddies behind. Shiro, unfazed, teleport swaps Musashi with one of Yamada no Orochi's heads to Awaji Island, because why not? Musashi and Michiru land in Awaji's heart, with Yataro playing the overprotective dad not wanting to hand over Michiru. He's ready to slice Musashi to snag the goddess, reminiscing about the previous goddess host. Musashi, clueless, name drops Jisai Maki, but Yataro's got no idea who that is. Michiru wakes up, begging Daddy Dearest not to ice Musashi. Yataro's baffled she's not following orders but intrigued by her research proposal to nab the goddess without the Musashi murder part. Yataro's all-proud dad moment, acknowledging Michiru's not just a pretty face but truly his brainy daughter. Musashi senses trouble, and as Yataro draws his blade, he pushes Michiru, turning her into a stone statue. Back at Yasuji HQ, the squad's struggling against the enemy. Seiroku mocks Kanatatsu's dragon tattoo as a fashion faux pas before going for a slice. Yataro's cold, admitting he silenced Michiru for her tearful plea for sympathy. He explains she's not dead, just petrified, revealing she's an Oni Kid experiment gone wrong, blending kids with Katetsu shards. Michiru, deemed a dud in the Super Kid trials, was tossed aside for not living up to Oni expectations. Musashi's not having it, insisting Michiru's awesome. Yataro, in a rare moment of agreement, unstones Michiru, who, plot twist, doesn't recognize Musashi. Her memories are wiped, and Yataro needs her body, not her soap opera feelings. Musashi's furious, but powerless without his sword energy. Yataro's about to deliver the final blow when Michiru, still harboring some memories, backstabs Dad with crystal growths. Yataro vows to keep erasing her emotions until she stops rebelling. Meanwhile, Shiro's bored out of his mind, hoping for a plot twist. Right on cue, Naotora Takeda and her Bashi crash the scene, seeking Tatsuomi. Shiro's like, oops, lost him, prompting Naotora to attack. As time runs out, Seiroku warns Kanatatsu he's next on his hit list before swapping places with Musashi. Musashi wakes up with Kojiro and Tsugumi, learning some Bashi are jumping ship post-Yasuji flop. Kanatatsu finds Musashi, recruiting him and his goddess-powered mojo to take down the Kishin, because obviously, Musashi's now the chosen one with a sign of deity power. Musashi and the gang decide to tail Kanatatsu after he hollers for help, touting Musashi and the Obsidian Goddess as their ace in the hole. On the road, Kojiro gets nostalgic about joining the Yasuji to dig up dirt on his dad but acknowledges their lives are now part of the bargain. If Musashi and Tsugumi won out, no hard feelings. Kanatatsu, noticing Tsugumi's hefty carry-on, guesses it's Musashi's Katetsu sword, rumored to have been swiped from execution grounds. Musashi's baffled, prompting Kojiro and Tsugumi to confess their rescue mission because, you know, friendship. Kanatatsu is touched by the power of friendship and shares his own buddy rescue mission, involving a Kishin smackdown. Musashi, inspired by the need to save Michiru, tells Kojiro he's in for the long haul, dad quest or not. And so, they arrive at the Yasuji Bashi Mausoleum, probably not on TripAdvisor's top 10. Back when humanity was just getting the hang of Oni warfare, a mysterious lady handed out the first Katetsu sword like Oprah, dubbing herself the Obsidian Goddess. Even post-mortem, her spirit's kicking around. Kanatatsu whips out a chest, claiming it's the key to unlocking goddess mode. Musashi wonders if this loot will help them take on the Black Dog Gang, aka the Ocho Obsidianos, notorious for being Oni's BFFs and Bashi slayers for over a century. Musashi's game, aiming to beef up for the King Maki Bashi's future. Kanatatsu reveals the chest's secret, a goblet of goddess blood, supposedly a vintage from a century ago. Musashi's grossed out by the drink me to gain powers plot twist. Kanatatsu, playing peer pressure, makes him chug. Post-sip, Musashi feels nada, but as they exit the mausoleum, he senses a stir. Turns out, a bunch of Katetsu's swords are now floating his way, probably thinking he's the new goddess hotspot. Kuriko Usami, the Yasuji strategist, unveils a plan to hit Yamana no Orochi, save Tatsuomi Yasuji, and dunk on the Ocho Obsidianos, all in one fell swoop. The first wave is tasked with a 10k Oni carve-out, Takeda's reinforcements are hornbusters, and the home team's benched due to an energy block. They got 3 days before Orochi goes full Pac-Man on Hinamoto. Meanwhile, Seiroku, Shiro, and Yataro, eavesdropping via spyware, reckon a 3-day defense is all it takes for the win. Musashi reunites with his squad, relieved to see them. They're down 4 Sarawatari fighters, and the Shimazu got red-carded. Musashi's all about learning everyone's names, realizing teamwork makes the dream work. Kuroko swoops in with a mission for the gang. Meanwhile, Kojiro's digging on his dad comes up empty, with Kanatatsu suggesting Tatsuomi might have the 411 since he's got the signature. Naotora Takeda throws shade at Kuroko's plan, arguing they're spread too thin and should focus on rescuing their leader, not playing hero. If they insist, Takeda's Bashi are sitting this one out. Yataro and company think they've got an easier gig now. Shiro's itching for a Naotora showdown, while Seiroku's got his eyes on Kanatatsu. Yataro's set on capturing the goddess, but Seiroku's like, nah, we got this, and cuts Yataro from the mission, citing performance issues. Battle day arrives, and Orochi's on a rampage, attacking anything threatening its offspring. Kuroko's plan involves bait boats and oil spills to lure Orochi into attack range, creating a smokescreen for Musashi's squad to swim undetected. But since Seiroku overheard the plan, he's prepped an Oni, which Musashi and the Shimazu gang easily trash. Yataro learns not only is the Oni toast, but Takeda's forces have joined the fray, thanks to Kuroko's double agent bluff. Yataro dials Seiroku, who's out fighting fires, literally. Kuroko's endgame, blow the mine, restore their energy chain, and neutralize Seiroku. The plan's to bomb the mine, but Shiro teleports the bombs over Takeda's Bashi. Seiroku, ever the opportunist, orders a goddess hit. Seiroku, gloating over Kuroko via spy call, loves when a plan comes together. But Kuroko hints the game's not over. Turns out, Takeda's Bashi dodged the bullet, thanks to Kuroko feeding the spies bad intel. Seiroku's bamboozled, realizing he's been played, but doubts the Usuji left anyone capable of challenging him. Cue Kanatatsu's entrance, attacking Seiroku as Kuroko reveals breaking his Katetsu sword will lift the energy lock. Kanatatsu's hit with a flashback. Tatsuomi once made him pinky promise to protect the Usuji Bashi if he ever ghosted. But there he was, getting schooled by Seiroku in the art of losing. Annoyed, Kanatatsu goes for a swing, but Seiroku's dodging like he's in a game of dodgeball. In a twist, Kanatatsu catches Seiroku's blade barehanded, smacks it with his other hand, and snaps it like a twig, busting the energy lock Seiroku slapped on it. Suddenly, it's game on, and Kuroko sends the 2,500-strong Black Robe Usuji elite squad to storm the island and teach those Oni a lesson. Seiroku's like, well, you got me as a strategist, but watch me go John Wick on your elite squad. And as Shiro's supposedly nabbing the goddess, he's calling it a win. Kanatatsu's like, hold your horses, my Takeda buddies are about to crash your party at your mine. Cue the Takeda Bashi rolling into the mine, with Shiro surprised to see Naotora, who's all surprise. I'm your Huckleberry. Katsumi's connecting the dots that they've been Kuroko's bait all along, but Naotora's like, showtime's just starting, folks. While the Usujis distract the Kishin, it's on them to take down the Ocho Obsidianos. Musashi's got a date with Destiny, and one of those baddies is his to dance with. Kanatatsu faces off with Seiroku, but being a yellow Bashi, he's not exactly quaking in his boots. Seiroku, king of special effects, wraps Kanatatsu in invisible ropes thinner than a politician's promises. Kanatatsu's cutting through them like he's on a shopping spree, but then finds he's more tangled up than last year's Christmas lights. Seiroku's pulling strings, literally, causing Kanatatsu all sorts of discomfort, and then hits him with a blackout move so he can't see. Blind and battered but not beaten, Kanatatsu gets back up only for Seiroku to play whack-a-mole with his fingers. As the Usuji squad gets closer, Seiroku gives Kanatatsu back his sight, wanting him to watch his friends get decimated. Seiroku then drops his life story, revealing he was a doc before turning into a Bashi with a knack for nasty tricks. He argues that Kanatatsu's friends are no different, pushing the dangerous jobs onto the mighty and not worth protecting. But Kanatatsu, wrapping bandages around Seiroku's sword, stands up, declaring that his friend's expectations are his badge of honor. Kanatatsu, now looking like a puppet with all those strings, decides to test if Seiroku's ropes or his own sword energy is stronger. Turning his blade on himself, he cuts through Seiroku's strings like a hot knife through butter, free to move again. Kanatatsu argues that Seiroku's divine powers are just smoke and mirrors, and once his energy fades, so do his tricks. Seiroku, not done yet, tries to tie Kanatatsu up again, but with a leap, Kanatatsu closes in. Seiroku, thinking he's not much of a fighter because of his gimmicks, is surprised as Kanatatsu bleeds him out with super speed. As Kanatatsu's losing blood like it's going out of fashion, Seiroku goes for the kill. But then, two Usuji Bashi jump in, taking the hit for Kanatatsu. Reflecting on Tatsumi words about not being an invincible hero but giving hope, Kanatatsu uses his last strength, letting Seiroku stab his hand to stop his sword, then skewers Seiroku, turning the tables. Meanwhile, Takeda's Bashi are setting up a no-fly zone for Shiro. Shiro's baffled Naotora wants a one-on-one, dismissing Bashi teamwork. Showing off his ring, Naotora gets deja vu, but Shiro doubts he'd remember anything from 10 years ago. As Shiro aims for the goddess, Naotora's like, "Goddess schmaddess, she's just causing drama." That ticks off Shiro, who breaks the barrier and tries to drown everyone in a makeshift aquarium. Naotora, unimpressed, slices the water trap in half, questioning if that's all Shiro's got. Identifying Shiro as the sword seeker, Naotora expresses his disdain for chaos creators like him, kicking off their showdown. When Naotora strikes, Shiro pulls a magic trick, redirecting the attack, revealing his true color is white. Meanwhile, Naotora's schooling Shiro on the power of blue Katetsu blades, turning lava into rock sculptures. Aoshi reminisces about Naotora inspiring them post-sword trials, revealing their special connection to the soul of the stone and their elemental control. Naotora's fire-water tiger combo wows even Shiro, who realizes Naotora's tapping into Kishin-like powers. Shiro easily dispatches the tigers, prompting a change of scenery for their duel. Shiro's puzzled by Naotora's fire-water trick, questioning its usefulness against a Kishin. Naotora, holding a black orb, reveals it's not for Kishin slaying but for taking down the Ocho Obsidianos, crafted for revenge. As Naotora slices through Shiro, he explodes into crystals, leading his Bashi to celebrate their captain's return, albeit with a shattered Katetsu blade. As the Usuji forces inch closer to victory, Naotora's right hand pays the price for his power, sidelining his blade energy for a while. The mystery between him and Shiro remains, with Naotora keeping tight-lipped. Musashi's squad, alongside the Shimazu, makes quick work of every Oni in their path, proving teamwork makes the dream work. Katsumi rallies the troops, breaking into two groups for the final push. Yataro takes Michiru deeper into the island, revealing his plan to merge with Orochi, requiring all his daughter's sacrifices. Transforming into a monstrous fusion of obsidian, man, and Oni god, Yataro's ready for the ultimate showdown. Musashi, learning the Shimazu names, realizes the value of unity and vows to support them, inspired by their brotherhood. As they face Yataro, he unveils his final form, a testament to his twisted ambition, setting the stage for an epic clash. Yataro goes full Voltron with the Kishin, morphing some of his daughters into swords, and starts hacking away at the Bashi, leaving only Musashi's squad standing. Now a Kishin kebab, the Shimazu gang decides it's go time and zeroes in on its horn, thinking it's the beast's Achilles heel. They try to link up Power Rangers style, but those pesky swords keep cutting their Wi-Fi connection. Just as a sneaky sword is about to do Haruhisa dirty, Musashi swoops in and breaks it, declaring he's joining the Shimazu's band of brothers. The Shimazu struggle to get their group chat back online while the swords keep playing keep away. Suddenly, the walls start to crumble, and they see Musashi going full lumberjack on those swords. Katsumi realizes Musashi, unable to link up, is doing his best to clear the path for teamwork. But then, Yataro knocks Musashi down. As the sword barrage continues, things look grim for the Shimazu. Natsuki finds himself on the chopping block, but Musashi saves the day. Natsuki's like, "Why the hero act?" and Musashi's all about that team spirit, telling him to go back and link up with the brothers. Natsuki sees Musashi isn't just fighting to fit in, he's making sure the Shimazu don't have to go it alone. Musashi keeps on keeping the Shimazu safe, allowing them finally to link up with Akihiro and land a critical hit on Yataro's horn. Smash! Meanwhile, Kanatatsu gets word that the last baddie's been benched. Naotora joins the party, saying he sent his troops to help take down the Kishin. But when Musashi's crew sees the broken horn isn't a Katetsu, and Yataro turns into a white snake hauling stones from Yura mine towards the Kishin, Naotora's like, "If that snake reaches the Kishin, it's game over for my troops." Musashi's squad is clueless on the snake's playbook, but Musashi rallies the troops for a brainstorm. The Shimazu welcome Musashi into the fold. With Katsumi's blue Bashi vibes, they reckon a 7-link chain's doable, but with Musashi, they could push it to 8. Musashi tries to get Akihiro in on the action, but the rest of the Shimazu couldn't care less. Haruhisa is calling Akihiro out on his me-first attitude, highlighting his lack of action when Natsuki was in danger and accusing him of glory hunting. Akihiro drops the act, admitting he sees them as pawns in his power play. Haruhisa, fed up, lands a punch, done listening to Akihiro's self-centered spiel. Akihiro, ticked off, throws something on the ground. Musashi picks it up, and the squad identifies it as a battle planning marker. Fui remembers the Shimazu brothers using it to dream up their future. They catch up to the white snake, and Haruhisa's blue blade link-up fizzles. Calling in Musashi and Fui, Haruhisa tags Musashi as the chain leader to take down the Oni. Akihiro tries to snatch the spotlight but fails. Frustrated by his brother's accusations of greed, Musashi apologizes for stepping on Akihiro's dream of being the hero with his siblings. Flashback to the Shimazu kids debating their dreams. Akihiro's reluctant to be the chain's tail until Natsuki convinces him it's a key spot. Despite not wanting the limelight, Akihiro pledges to follow Haruhisa, the eldest. Akihiro clarifies to Musashi he never wanted to be the Hornbreaker. Just a misunderstanding, folks. Akihiro pulls a classic sibling move and hijacks the Shimazu squad's blade energy to boost his own attacks, then charges at the snake. His hits put the brakes on the snake's slither, but the Shimazu crew can't help but wonder why Akihiro's suddenly so thirsty for glory. Turns out, their brotherly bond took a hit the day of the sword trial, throwing us back to a time when Akihiro was the family's red sheep, boasting a rare red soul while his brothers were all about the blue. Back in the day, during the sword trial, Akihiro's dad was all proud papa over Akihiro's red soul, pegging him as the future clan leader. But Akihiro, ever the brotherly bro, thought Haruhisa should be the head honcho. Dad wasn't having it and made them duel, with Akihiro easily winning, showcasing the red versus blue divide. Dad then decreed Haruhisa would be Akihiro's servant, a move that didn't sit well with either brother. Akihiro confessed he'd trade his red soul in a heartbeat, while Haruhisa secretly yearned for it. As Akihiro stepped up as the leader, his popularity soared, eventually earning Dad's scorn. Fast forward, and Akihiro's swiping the Shimazu's link energy to take on the snake. But when the snake keeps moving, Akihiro rallies the troops for a mega link-up, despite the Shimazu's reluctance. As they finally link, Akihiro heads for the snake's horn, ready to make the ultimate sacrifice for his brother's safety. But plot twist, Orochi decides to snack on the snake and Akihiro, leaving everyone in shock. Musashi chats with Haruhisa, suggesting Big Bro should have Little Bro's back. Haruhisa admits his beef with Akihiro, regretting not having a red soul to lead better. Musashi hits him with the reality check. If Akihiro bites it, Haruhisa's in charge. Is this what he wanted? Inside Orochi, Akihiro follows the snake, resigned to his fate if it means happiness for the others. After a knockout blow, he dreams of Haruhisa's promise to always protect him. Waking up, he's surprised to see Haruhisa fighting the snake, wondering what he's doing there. Haruhisa reminds him to consider his comrade's feelings, handing him the wooden marker Musashi had given him earlier, a symbol of their childhood dreams and Akihiro's attachment to the past. Akihiro insists he stayed behind so they could survive, seeing himself as the designated horncutter. But juggling duty and brotherhood has been eating at him. Since Haruhisa's arrival means breaking their link, they can't cut the horn now. Musashi suggests another link-up, and Akihiro fears being replaced would nullify his life's worth. Haruhisa clarifies it's about brotherhood, not roles. They link again, and this time Akihiro shatters the snake's horn. With Orochi's food supply cut, Kanatatsu's men gear up and successfully take down Orochi's horns. And Yusuji Bashi wonders who took out the snake's horn, a move that saved thousands. The Shimazu brothers point to Akihiro, who humbly declines the spotlight, suggesting someone else take the credit. Haruhisa tells him to accept the praise for their hard-fought battle and to thank Musashi for returning his wooden marker, with Akihiro promising to repay the favor. Yamada no Orochi has been defeated, but the Bashi are scratching their heads because their Kitetsu swords aren't vibing together anymore. Meanwhile, Kojiro and Tsugumi's squad is duking it out with a gang of Oni on a quest to find Tatsuomi Yusuji. The ground shakes, spitting out black crystals, and Kanatatsu's like, BRB, gotta find Tatsuomi. Victory's kinda pointless without him. Musashi has a light bulb moment and dashes off to find Kojiro, Tsugumi, and Michiru, with Katsumi and Akihiro tagging along because the Kitetsu beacon is lit on the mountain. Just then, Kojiro's crew rolls up with Tatsuomi in tow. Tatsuomi's giving off proud dad vibes, telling Kanatatsu he never doubted them for a second, and they share a bro hug. Tatsuomi spills the beans that Michiru had a heart-to-heart with him while he was in Oni custody. She's got amnesia about Musashi but feels he's someone special. Her dad's been trying to erase her memory and ditch her, making her think she's about as valuable as a pet rock. Musashi's not having any of that and sets off to find Michiru, with a posse of Bushi in tow. They find the mountain's hollow inside and jump in, only to see a floating black sword and a shady figure grabbing it. Plot twist, it's Yutaro, who's merged with Orochi, siphoning its power. He reveals the sword is Michiru, his one successful experiment in turning a human into a Katetsu sword. Yutaro and Shiro had been on AQ.